But anyway, when he used to be leaving the house, he was certain house, he was 13, but he went into every house and he had the clocks. And he had such a load of clocks in the car that to keep this until the next day he'd come around. He'd wind it there and all and settle it for you and show you how to fix the time. But he'd leave it there, and when you'd come around a week after, well, you'd nearly give him the shirt off your back before you parted the little clock. And that was his way, and he sold 20, 30, 40 clocks around there.
He was a good psychologist.
He was no better. Indeed he was.
Wirelesses were rare enough.
Oh, they weren't there at all. They weren't anywhere, said that.
Do you remember the first wirelesses?
Well, I don't, but I can remember when we got the first wireless here. Oh, it's a good many years ago. But they were wireless. We used to... There was a school teacher down here in Kilbrine, and he lived over where he was lodged over in Coolnessmere. And there used to be football matches on between Kerry and Dublin and those places. It was Sunday to hear it. That was the nearest wireless to it. Mr. Ward that was down here, he was a school teacher in Kilbrine.
And of course you had to have batteries as well then, didn't you?
What batteries that was running him that time? Indeed it was. I remember he was down here at the residence where he was staying then afterwards, and there was a terrible crowd, about 200 or 300 people there, listening to the wireless. He had it out on the open, and all of a sudden the battery went off. It was a disappointment for everybody.
They weren't too thankful to the batteries.
Well, you might be sure of it.
How does the country seem to you now?
There's big changes towards my time, terrible change. Everything is quite simple now. You have your lights, you have everything. You have lodges, you have cars, you have everything. There's a terrible change in the country.
Do you remember the first cars, I suppose, around
I
here?
do well. I remember well the first car that ever I saw it out on the road. I was out there with a workman we had for a turf. And he came out on the road, and he left the spade inside in the mountain, and he told me to stand with the horse while I'd be going for the spade. And with that, what had come up the road as a motor car, well, the horse I had never before saw it. But luckily enough, I was able to, and I was only about 7 years, I was able to turn the horse around and go back in the mountain again with it. And the people in the car came out and over the all right. Did they have? It is 20 years or more since I left my native shore to lead an exile's life across the foe. But the scenes I've left behind are still fresh within my mind, and I never can forget my childhood's home. In my dreams I worship still the old church by the hill, where my hands on Sunday prayer I used to join, and my memory flies each day o'er the ocean far away to the little village schoolroom of Kilbrine.